Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're located. We are delighted to welcome you to our third webinar series this year, Special Topics in Remote Interpreting. Today is our second webinar in this series, Your Remote Interpreting Setup to a T. As many of you already know, recordings of past webinars can be found on our Blue Horizon online learning platform at interpretertraining-online.com. In addition, you can find information there on our other upcoming webinars. My name is Michelle Gallagher, and I'm the Managing Director of Cross Culture Communications, the only U.S. training agency for medical and community interpreting, and Blue Horizon, our online learning platform for our self-paced and live training programs. I will be your host for today's one-hour webinar as Marjorie Bancroft, our director, is on vacation. Also with us today is my colleague Andrew Hall, Cross Culture Communications Publications Manager. Andrew is managing the chat and will provide useful information in that area throughout the webinar. Before we begin, and as we wait for everyone to come online, I'd like to go over a few points. The webinar presentation will last 40 to 45 minutes, followed by a 15 to 20-minute Q&A period, during which you can ask our presenter questions. During the webinar, please keep the Q&A feature open and use the Q&A to submit your questions for our presenter. For other comments or questions for us here at Cross Culture Communications, please use the chat feature instead. And if you want everyone to see your comments in the chat, please change your chat settings to all panelists and attendees. And if you want to stay on after our presenter leaves us at the end of the hour to chat with Andrew and me, we'll be happy to answer your questions about both Cross Culture Communications and Blue Horizon. Now, this webinar has been approved for CE use from ATA, the American Translators Association, CCHI, the Certification Commission for Healthcare Interpreters, IMIA, the International Medical Interpreters Association, and RID, the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf. 24 hours after the webinar, attendees will be emailed a link to download a certificate of attendance. This email will also include instructions on how to request RID CEUs, which require a separate $20 CEU processing fee. Certificates are only available for attendees of the live session of this webinar. Now, without further ado, let's begin our webinar, Your Remote Interpreting Setup to a T. We are delighted and honored to welcome back today's presenter, Maha El-Medwali, an experienced conference interpreter of Arabic, English, French, and Dutch. She works for a wide range of international organizations, including the European institutions and the United Nations. She is also a member of the prestigious International Association of Conference Interpreters, AIC. Maha, I pass the baton on to you.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for this kind introduction, and thank you everybody for joining us. And let me then start by sharing my screen so that we can get started. Well, we are going to talk today about your remote simultaneous interpreting setup, something that many of us have had to learn quickly about in the past period, but there is always room for improvement, and there are always new things that appear that may be useful to know. So let us do that. After Michelle's introduction, there is nothing more that I want to say about myself, except that I am happy to be with you here. And before we get started, I'd like you to participate in an anonymous poll, just to have a bit more idea about you and about what you're expecting. So on your mobile phones, or if you can use your laptop without losing the Zoom meeting, then you can also do that. I need you to go to menti.com and enter the code that you see in front of you on the screen, and that is 4433558. So if you can do that, that would be great. And then I'm going to share the screen of Menti so that we can all see the answers to the questions. And as I said, the answers are anonymous. We are not going to be seeing who says what, but we will just see your answers. So let me then do that. And if you wait a second, you will find the code back on the menti.com screen, so do not worry about that if you haven't managed to log in yet. So I'm going to share my other screen, and we can do the poll. So that is the code. You can see it on the top of the screen, and I can see that there are answers already to the first question, where you are joining us from. We have more than 350 participants with us, so we'll just give it a minute to see where you are joining us from. And so far, the majority of those who voted are from North America. So I'll leave it on the screen for a little bit more. And it is always good to see how colleagues are joining from different parts of the world. I think that is one of the silver linings of the Corona crisis, that it allowed us to get together in ways that were not possible before. So having a webinar like this, where colleagues are joining from different parts of the world, maybe doing that physically wouldn't have been that easy in the past. Okay. So the majority are from North America, then Europe, Asia, South America, Africa, and then Oceania. Good. So I'll move then to the next question. And the next question is whether you are satisfied with your current remote interpreting setup. So this is a very simple yes or no question. So far it is it's almost a tie. Okay. It's very interesting. So okay, half of the colleagues who are voting are satisfied and the other half not. Okay. Okay. So the next question then would be, maybe for those who are not satisfied with their setup, I'd like you then to write in your own words what could be improved. What are you seeking to improve in your setup? And we will see then what you write here on the screen. So if there is anything in particular, okay. The chair, the headset, the connectivity, equipment. So only if you are not happy, please please write down what it is that that you would like to improve. Better internet, okay. The sound, okay. So yeah, well, the phone, it gives a bit of an idea about what it is that you would like to improve, having multi-channels. Okay. So let me then try to address some of these issues: the noise, the ergonomics. Yeah. Okay. Well, these are things that we can definitely touch upon here during the presentation. And if there is still questions after the presentation, then we will do that then in the question and answer session. Great. So let us then go back to the presentation and look at what it is that that we are going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the basic setup, so the bare essentials that you need in order to be able to offer remote simultaneous interpreting in a professional way, in terms of equipment, of course. And then I will look at the advanced setup, so things that you could add depending on your needs, depending on your budget, and then some extras, which I think are handy, but of course that's my opinion. So so then we'll see what would be useful for you to add and what not. I'm going then to divide the presentation into the basic setup, and then we'll talk about the advanced setup. So with the basic setup, what is it that you need for your remote simultaneous interpreting? The things that you need are basically three things, and these are a computer or a laptop, wired internet, and a USB headset. So these are the three things that you need. These are the three components for such a basic setup. Okay, then comes the question, which? So which computer? Many of the platforms, they recommend having a minimum of an Intel i5 core processor and 4 gigabyte RAM. It could be that your computer is more advanced than this, that's fine, but that is the minimum that you need to have. And then when it comes to the wired internet, instead of using Wi-Fi, you could have maybe very fast Wi-Fi, but the Wi-Fi speed would be diminished the further you get from the router. So if your router is in one place in the house and the place that you work from is elsewhere, the further you get from the router, the slower your connection is going to be, and there could be fluctuations there. So in order to make sure that you have stable internet, it is best if you have wired internet. The internet cable itself, the Ethernet cable, it comes in different categories. So I'm using a category 7E Ethernet cable. There is even a category 8 now. But what you need to have is then the latest, if possible, in the Ethernet cables so that your internet is stable and wired. If you are using a PC, then it is it's very much guaranteed that you are going to be having the slot in your PC for the Ethernet cable. However, if you are using a laptop, the old laptops used to have such a slot for the Ethernet, but the modern ones not anymore. So this means you need an adapter. And with this adapter, it is an adapter where from one side you can enter or you can connect the Ethernet cable. And from the other side, it has a USB, so you can connect it to your computer or to your laptop. If your laptop has a USB-C portal, that smaller one, this brand, Techhole, I'm sure it's not the only one, but this one has an extra adapter so that you can connect your Ethernet cable to your laptop if it has a USB-C portal. So that is how you can get the Ethernet cable to be connected to your laptop. And then, of course, the headset. Okay, so and that is something that many people ask about, which headset. I would say to start with, have two. So have two headsets for a couple of reasons. Have one that is, let's say, mid-range, or if you want to have an expensive one and a cheaper one, that's totally up to you. But have two headsets of two different brands. And why? That is because there is, in my opinion, no rhyme or reason really why a headset would work on a particular platform well, but then it would create echo or a buzz or feedback on a different platform. I don't understand it. However, it is the case that you can have a good headset and it works very well on one platform, but then you go to a different platform and then it goes berserk. So it is a good thing to have two for just in case. And if something breaks or stops working for whichever reason, then at least you have a backup. So to start with, make sure that you have two headsets. There are many options for the headsets and how to choose which headset. Well, it would really depend on your preferences, but there are some good resources out there to help you choose which headset. So one of them, for instance, is the ISO compliant list of headsets that were tested by AIC, the International Association of Conference Interpreters. So the technical committee there tested several headsets and they published a list with these headsets. So that's a good way help you make a choice. But also Naomi Bowman, our colleague, she looked at different headsets in one of her coffee mornings, and she prepared a document, and both the AIC list and Naomi's list are open and accessible on social media, so you can definitely get it from there. What you need to think about is the headset noise cancelling or not? Is it heavy or not? Is it on the ear or around the ear? So there are different preferences there. So then you can find the one that you want. I would personally prefer that you get a headset, or if you are thinking of getting one, a more versatile headset that has both a 3.5 millimeter audio jack and a USB. So these exist, and it would give you more options if you have that. A USB headset is the one that is recommended, but in some cases it is better to have one with a 3.5 millimeter audio jack, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But there are several resources out there where you can get a good headset from. Okay, so these were the headsets. For Zoom specifically, since a lot of meetings happen on Zoom, as we all know, we all need two devices in order to be able to work on one and to listen to our colleague, and maybe also take relay from another booth on the second device. So then you may have two headphones on. One is the headset you're working from for the main device, and then another one, like let's say the mobile phone earphones to listen with it. But this means then you will have both ears occupied. It may be a good idea to use a mixer, and there are two types of mixers. The simple one is the one on the right, where you connect the two devices, and you can then listen with one headset to the two devices, to the sound coming from the floor and to the sound coming from the second device, if you're listening to your colleague or listening to a booth that you are taking relay from. The other one, the same brand, just mixer. However, it has more options, and that is making the sound come into your right ear or your left ear. So in the booth, for instance, I'm always used to listening to the speaker with my right ear and my left ear, sorry, and with my right ear, I'm always listening to my booth partner. But here, if you are using the first mixer, you will get the sound in both ears at the same time, unless you change something in your settings on your computer. But the second mixer, the one on the left, it allows you to pan the volume, so you can choose to listen to one device in one ear and the other device in the other. So that would be useful to have if you are using Zoom a lot and you would like to have a close experience to what you have usually in the booth. Then we look now at the advanced setup. So we agreed that what we want for a setup to like the bare minimum or the basic is to have the computer or laptop, the headset, and wired internet. But there are more things that you can add to make your life easier. And to start with, you need an extra screen. Why? Because I would advise that if you are using your computer or laptop as your console, then you do not touch that. This is just your console, and you get to look at your documents, your glossary, whatever it is. If you are searching online for a term or something, whatever it is that you would usually use your laptop or your tablet for in the booth, create all this on a different screen. It could be that you are very good at choosing different functions at the same time on your laptop, in which case it is fine. But you do not want to have like, one of these situations where you close a window and you end up by mistake closing the meeting instead of that window that you wanted to close. So I would say an extra screen for the documents, for the glossary, for searching online, that's a good idea. So that would be my first thing to add for the advanced setup. Another thing is an uninterruptible power supply. I don't know if that is relevant for some colleagues who live in countries where they never have power outage. However, power outage can happen in some parts of the world. So having an uninterruptible power supply, a UPS, is a good idea. What I do is I have it connected to electricity because it's like one big battery. So it is connected to electricity all the time, and what is connected to it also all the time is my router. So that if there is a power outage or if the electricity trips for whichever reason, then my connectivity will not be affected. And since I usually use a laptop in order to connect to meetings, it is usually charged. It can go for a couple of hours before it requires electricity. So I think that's a good idea to have your router connected to the UPS and to have your laptop charged before you start working. The period of time that you can have a power supply on such a UPS depends on the capacity of such a UPS. So it also depends on how many devices are connected to it. So the more devices, the less time that you would have. That's why I have only my router connected to it. But if you want to invest in something with more capacity, this means that you will get more time if the power supply is interrupted for a longer period of time. Another thing is a limiter, and that is something that could help protect you against acoustic shock. And thankfully, acoustic shock is a topic that is now being discussed more and more in our circles. So what I would do is I would connect my headset to the limiter and connect the limiter to my microphone, and then connect the microphone to the laptop if I'm using a separate microphone. If not, then I would connect the limiter to the laptop and then connect the headphone to the limiter. And what a limiter does is it stops the sudden surge in sound, especially if that sudden surge is beyond the safe limits. So it would limit it, or it would cap it at 85 decibels, which is, I think, the ISO recommended safe level. So for this, it is useful to have a headset with both a USB and the 3.5 mil audio jack, because they do not work on USB. That's why I was saying it is good to have a headset that has both a 3.5 millimeter audio jack and a USB. So one of the headsets that has that is the Jabra Evolve 40. There is also the Plantronics Blackwire 5200. Both of them have the different audio jacks and USB portals, so you can use it. It's more versatile that way, and you can use it with a limiter. Another thing that I think is also useful is which microphone. So you might want to do a setup where you have headset with a built-in microphone like the one I'm wearing, or you can use your regular headphones from the booth together with an external microphone. That also works very nicely. So it really depends on what you want to do. I have both for just in case. So I'm using the Blue Yeti, for instance. There are other colleagues that are very pleased with the Rode NT. So you can explore a bit and see which microphone would fit you better, or fit your budget, etc. But if you use a microphone, it is also a good idea to use a shield with it, because you do not want to have echo in the area where you are working. So what a microphone shield does is it's absorbs any echo. So then if you are using a microphone and you put that shield around it, it will make the sound quality better. And then it is up to you, depending on the microphone that you get, whether it is something that can be attached to the shield, as you see, or if it is something that you can attach to a boom arm, and the boom arm then gives you more flexibility because you can move it around, you can bring it closer and so on. So what I have is a Blue Yeti on a boom arm, and the shield is just movable, so I can move it around depending on my setup for the day. But that is something that that would be useful. And do test the sound quality. Do record yourself using a headset, and do record yourself using the microphone, because for us as interpreters, we want the best sound quality possible, but it's also important to think of what kind of sound quality our clients are getting. So we will not know that until we actually record ourselves and listen to ourselves using different devices. I was very surprised. I was using Logitech H390, which is a very budget headphone, and I was using it happily. I did not think there was any issues with it until I recorded myself using it, and then compared it to how I sound using the Blue Yeti, for instance, and the difference was very audible. So it is a good idea to test the sound quality that your client will be getting. I think it is it's a sign of professionalism that you care about what kind of sound they are getting, since they are going to be listening to you for quite some time. Add to this an adjustable laptop table, and that is particularly useful if you are working on camera. So if you are doing video remote interpreting, it is important to look at how the clients see you. So you do not want the camera angle to be wrong. You do not want to be looking down. You do not want to be looking up. You want to just to be framed in the middle of the screen. And that is something then can be adjusted so that the camera of your laptop, or if you have an external camera, it can be at eye level. So you want to make sure that you are in the middle of the frame with the camera at eye level. So then you can do that either with such an adjustable laptop table or a stack of books, whatever you like, but then make sure that your camera is at eye level. It is also, ergonomically speaking, better for your neck because if we are going to be spending time interpreting and staring at the screen, it is good to have it at a comfortable level. Some handy accessories that I use. One of them was recommended by a good colleague. It's an external volume button. In the booth, I'm usually having my hand there on the volume button because different speakers have different volume levels. Some are soft spoken, some are very loud. So I'm always adjusting the volume. And if this is something that you miss, if you are working remotely, then an external volume button may be the solution for you. It is plug and play. It works with a USB. So the minute that you adjust, not adjusted, what is the word, connected to your laptop, then it is ready for use. And it is interesting because you can also mute yourself from that button if needed. So you can just press on it and then you are muted, or you can just adjust the volume up and down, and it is very easy to use. So that is a good addition to have. Another accessory that is also useful is such a holder for your smart device. When we are working in a remote setting, we usually have several screens on. So if you have your laptop for your console and then another device for your documents and glossary and everything, we also have our mobile phones to communicate with the meeting organizers or with our colleagues via WhatsApp or via other channels of communication. And what happens is you have created a WhatsApp group and there are messages coming on it. But if you put your phone on your desk and you get so engrossed in what is happening on the screen, you may forget to look at your phone, and then you miss important messages coming from your booth partner or from the meeting organizer. So I want always to have the screen there in front of me. I want to be able to see such messages when, as and when they come. And I thought that this is a good solution because it will always keep my mobile phone at eye level, so it's adjustable. You can raise it up and down, raise it up or lower it, and you can have it there right next to your screen, so that if any message comes, then it draws your attention. You can immediately see it. So that is useful, especially if the communication during the meeting is continuous. For instance, when we are working remotely, sometimes the sound quality or the video quality is not good, and the interpreting team then have the right to stop interpreting, depending, of course, on the agreement that you had with the client. But having the team leader saying when to stop and when to resume, that is important, and the messages would come on WhatsApp, for instance. So I want to be able to see that straight away when it comes. So it is good to have something to keep your eyes on the mobile device, or to attract your attention, make it possible for you to see the mobile device messages during a meeting. So that is also a useful bit of accessory. Light, if you are going to be doing video remote interpreting, light is important. You want to be centered in the middle of the frame, but also you want to have good light. Lumia Cube is a possibility. It comes either in the form of a Lumia Cube on a tripod, or it can be fixed to your own screen, or a ring light, which is also adjustable. So you can choose what kind of light. Is it soft? Is it hard? Is it warm? Is it cool? And so on. So you can adjust that. And usually I would keep it then behind my screen, so it would be focused on my face. So if I'm required to be on camera at night, then I would have good light. So that is also something to think about. And when we are working from home, we want to maintain a neutral background, or at least a decluttered background. But I think it's a good idea to have a neutral background for a couple of reasons: for privacy, maybe also as a sign to the family that you're busy. So if I'm sitting behind that screen, then don't approach me. You may also want to project your brand or your logo or something. So if you want to do that, then having a screen helps you to do that properly. So if you have a virtual background, for instance, let's say, okay, now I am projecting my virtual background. So then having a screen helps you to do that in a good way. So that's also a possibility. And then if you want, there is another option, and that is a WebAround. And WebAround is a brand that sells such screens, and such a screen is adjustable. So it is something that you can fix on the back of your seat. And basically what happens is you can move with the seat as much as you want, and then it will be easy to have that background behind you, because it is stuck to your seat. So then you do not have to adjust the background or anything. It is just there. And also, if you want to project a virtual background or something, that is possible, and they have different sizes. So this may also be an option for you. Sound insulation. With sound insulation, you can either have such tiles, the sound absorbing tiles, and you can put them on the walls of the office or the area that you are using for remote interpreting. There are curtains that can also offer sound insulation. So it depends really on where you are working in your house. It needs to be a quiet location, but if it is overlooking a busy street, or if it is a room that you cannot really get to be quieter, then that is a possibility to think of investing in insulating the room that you are working in. Some software that is also useful to have especially if you are trying to eliminate the noise that is coming into your ears, but also the noise that is coming out of your microphone. Let's say if you are in a bit of a noisy city, then Crisp is a good idea. And Crisp basically is an add-on that you can add to Chrome. And as we all know, most of the platforms prefer that you use Chrome. So you add it as an add-on to Chrome. And what you will see is, as you can see here in the top right, that letter K, the orange K within a circle, that is Crisp. So once you add it as an add-on to your Chrome, that is where you will see it. If you click on it, then you can turn it on to mute the noise that is coming into your ear and that is coming out of your microphone. You can have a free version for a couple of hours per week, but the paid version is less than $3.50 per month, and it covers up to 3 devices. So that is a good addition to have if you live in a noisy place. Another thing is, that's also a tip from a colleague from the Japanese booth, the Cuckoo team. And it is basically an egg timer, but an electronic egg timer. So when we are working remotely, we always, as is the case when we are working in the booth, we agree on our turns, how long each one of us is going to be working. And we are usually, at least with conference interpreters, we do half an hour each. However, with remote interpreting, it's more demanding. So the number of minutes that we work depends. Sometimes it is 15 minutes or 20 minutes. But because our, let's say, inner watches are set to the half an hour, you can easily go further than your time. And at the same time, because we have so many screens and so many things around us, we could easily forget to look at the watch. So what the Cuckoo team does is this: you go to their website, you start a session, and you set how many minutes is your turn. So 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is, and you send a link to your booth partner or partners, so they will have all the same timer in the background. And when the 15 minutes have elapsed or the 20 minutes have elapsed, then you will get a ping in your ear. So you do not need to look at more things, but it will give you that little nudge. Hey, it's time now to start the handover. So it may be useful also to look at something like this to help you maintain the time or to keep track of the time when you are working. Some tips: always have a backup of everything. So with the remote interpreting, with technology in general, things could go wrong, and it's a bit like Murphy's Law. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. So always have a backup of everything. If you can afford to have 2 headsets, 2 laptops, 2 of this, 2 of that, do it, because you may find yourself in a situation when things freeze or block or whatever, and you really need a second device to work on. So think of that. Also, always check the internet speed before every assignment. There are several generic websites. There are websites that are generic, but also there are possibilities with the platforms to check your speed and to check your setup. So always do that. A good idea is also to restart your computer or your laptop before every assignment. We have so many things running in the background of our computers or our laptops, and we are not aware that they may be affecting the sound quality, or they may be affecting the speed of the computer. So it's a good thing to just shut everything down, turn everything off, restart, and open only the windows that you need. So that would be something to consider. Also, any unnecessary windows, just close them, turn them off. You do not need them for the duration of your meeting or your assignment. Make sure that you always have the latest version of Chrome and Mozilla Firefox. many of the platforms, remote interpreting platforms, they say use Google Chrome, but also have Mozilla Firefox, because sometimes if there is a glitch of whichever sort, then it is good to have a backup. So a backup of everything, including the browsers. So Mozilla Firefox, latest version, Chrome, latest version. Also, if you are using Zoom a lot, download the latest version of Zoom as well. Any other apps, WebEx, Microsoft Teams, etc., download the latest version. Make sure that that you do that. And sometimes downloading the latest version may not be necessary, but sometimes it is not possible to benefit from the most recent additions without that update. So for instance, Zoom has recently opened the possibility to customize languages. So my language, for instance, Arabic, it was not there, but now Arabic is possible as to customize and to add it to the meeting. So instead of sitting in the Korean booth or in the Japanese booth, they were very hospitable so far, but now I can actually sit in the virtual Arabic booth. However, the caveat is, if not everybody involved in the meeting, if everybody involved in the meeting does not have the latest version of Zoom, they will not be able to see the customized channel. So I could be happily sitting in the Arabic booth, but if people cannot hear me, then what is the point? So it is good to have the latest version of whichever communication app you are going to use. Okay, so that's all what I wanted to say, and thank you very much for your attention. If you'd like to get in touch, you can contact me either by email, or you can check my website. I have my contact details there too. And I think it's time now for questions. So I tried not to take the whole time talking, because I'd like to listen to your questions and hopefully answer them. So I think that Michelle was in the background curating the questions. So Michelle, over to you.
Thank you so much, Maha. That was amazing as a presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
So much information. We had so many positive comments in the chat and so many questions. I'm not going to take up much more time. We're going to start giving you those questions because there were a lot of them. So to our attendees, thank you for your rapt attention to Maha's presentation. We're going to try to get to as many of your questions as possible. Okay. So I've been organizing questions basically by topic. Quite a few questions, Maha, about headsets. First question, of course, was let's take a look. It was from Adriana. Would you mind telling us which headphones you're using today? Their sound is really good.
Okay, that's good to hear. And that is feedback from the clients. You know, you are listening and the sound is good, so I'm glad to hear it. I'm using the Jabra Evolve 40. And it is one of the headsets that I was recommending. It is one that has both a USB and a 3.5 mil. So it's like this. I can disconnect this, and that is the 3.5 mil, or it's connected now with USB. But it also has an external button for volume. So if you do not want to have an external volume button, this one has it. So it has several nice features.
Excellent. We actually had someone in the Q&A say that they love their Jabra headset. So there we go.
Oh,
We
very
have 2
good.
votes.
Okay. That's good.
That is wonderful. Thank you, Maha. So we have a question from Glenn, who asks, would you wear headphones over both ears or over one? And when would you use either option?
Okay, well, as you can see, but yeah, you cannot see my ears because I'm wearing a head cover, but this one is pushed back a little bit, Glenn. So I'm usually covering one ear only, and the other one is just for me to monitor myself when I'm talking or when I'm interpreting. So cover only one ear. That's what I usually do.
Okay. And Maha, why would you, I mean, we know in the conference interpreting world, the reasons behind that, but for our audience, why would you cover one ear versus having both ears covered by the headset?
Okay, well, one ear is for listening. The other one is for monitoring yourself. You know, if that's why, for instance, I prefer the on the ear and not over the ear headphones. You know the difference, like one is on the ear, it's a bit like this, so it is just on your ear. Sorry, the other one is around the ear, which is like bigger, so it really surrounds your whole ear. If you have both ears surrounded in that way, you will not be able to hear yourself. And one of the things that an interpreter does is to monitor yourself while you are talking. So you need to be able to hear yourself to do that. Another thing is also to listen to the booth partner. So when we are in a booth, you need to have one ear uncovered in order to be able to hear your booth partner and the speaker simultaneously. So that's why you cover one ear and leave the other one free.
Fantastic. Best practices from an experienced conference interpreter. Thank you, Maha, for that. Yes. All right. So continuing on with our headset questions, we have one from Maritza who asks, is there a headset that you would recommend for use with a regular landline phone for OPI?
Okay, well, when I do over the phone interpreting, it is usually just using a regular phone. So I do not have a phone that has a headset or a headphone slot in it. So it is just a regular phone. So I'm sorry, Maritza, I will not be able to answer this question. But there are so many colleagues, more than 400 colleagues that joined us. And thank you for this. If you have a tip for Maritza, then please share it in the chat, because that is also a good opportunity to learn from each other.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Maha. And it's true, right? We have over 400 attendees right now. So you do have an audience as well for other people to chime in and share their opinions and their experience.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So there is another question about headsets, Maha. From Faith, what do you think about opting for a Bluetooth option for a Zoom meeting? I wear a hearing aid.
Okay. I am not sure really because I do not have experience with this, but what I always advise is if you can connect it with a wire, then do it. You know, so you do not want to have any kind of accidents with the Bluetooth disconnecting or whatever. So that's why wired internet, a headset with a wire, anything that can be wired, just do it. If it works in your case, Faith, then fantastic, but I cannot advise because I do not know how it combines with a hearing aid.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much for that, Maha. Yeah, for that information. We now have a couple of questions, switching a little bit to microphones, where a lot of people chimed in with this as well. A question from Kristen is, I tried using a Nano Yeti with a MacBook Air, but the sound on various platforms has been distorted. Is this because I have to use an adapter to connect the Blue Yeti to my MacBook?
I see. Well, I use an adapter to connect my Blue Yeti to the MacBook as well. So I have a MacBook Air and I have a Blue Yeti, but not a Nano, a different one, the regular one. I don't know if I can bring it closer for you to see it, but let me then bring it a little bit, you know. So this one, you know, okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Kristen,
this one.
Please, I hope you're watching.
Kristen, watch this one, Kristen.
Go.
Okay, there you are. So it is this one that I'm using, and because I'm using a MacBook Air, the new one, I need the USB-C adapter. So I did not have any issues with it. But to be honest, I was once on a platform and they said there is a bit of an echo. So then I had to shift to the headset instead of the Blue Yeti. But I'm also using the Shield, and it is good if you are in a room with a lot of, let's say, hard floors, hard furniture. Use soft furnishings around, like, you know, try to put things around that can also absorb the sound. I hope that helps.
Excellent. Thank you, Maha. That turned out to be a very apt example, quite honestly, an apt question. Perfect. Here's another question about microphones, Maha. We have this from Sihan, and Sihan asks, do you think that a sound isolator box fixed to the external microphone is enough for an open space?
How open is the space would be my question.
Sihan, if you're listening, if you could type that into the Q&A.
How open? But I would say, like, try to make it a bit confined, you know. So for instance, a screen like this is also a good idea because it sort of makes the space smaller. It is made of cloth, so it also helps a bit with softening the surroundings. So yeah, sometimes if you are in a really big space, and it might not be helped. So try to confine it a bit, see if that helps.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Maha. And we actually had a follow-up question from Kristen about the adapter. She asks, can I get the brand of the adapter? I guess, and
sure,
I imagine the brand that you use.
It is called Techhole. So I'll write it in the chat, Kristen, and and I did not buy it separately. It just came with my regular adapter for the wired internet. So it is called Tech, TEC Hole, HOLE, Tech Hole.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maha. And thank you, Kristen, for that interactive back and forth. Now, we had a lot of questions about the WebAround, about the background in general. People were fascinated with that. And we got so many questions in the chat. Andrew was directing them over to Q&A. So first of all, Maha, regarding that, we had one question from Carmen and from several other folks as well, asking where the WebAround can be purchased.
They have their website. Let me just double check, but I think it is webaround.com. Just give me 1 second.
Sure. Yeah. And of course, our participants as well, you can always Google it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yes, the website is thewebaround.com. So I'm going to put it in the chat as well. And at the moment, and they have different colors. So I think I spotted something in the chat about it has to be green or something, but here it is, thewebaround.com. They have blue, green, and gray. They have different sizes for if your camera, for instance, is wide angled or whatever. Go and choose the one that would work for you.
Excellent. Thank you, Maha, with that. And then a follow-up regarding background. Some people were also fascinated by this idea of putting your name or your brand or logo in the background. Specifically from Sehan, we have a question that states, can you give more information about how to reflect your name or your logo on the background screen?
Sure. Okay. If you are using Zoom, what you need to do is you need to go to the video settings. So if you look now on your Zoom interface, you will see in the bottom left the microphone icon, and then next to it there is the video camera. So if you click on the video camera, next to it there's a little arrow. Then you have the video settings. If you click on the video settings, then one of the options you will see is background and filters. So if you click on that, you have some built-in backgrounds. I'm sure you have seen them in Zoom meetings, like, something like this. So this is built in, that comes with Zoom, or you can put your own picture. So for instance, I got a slide from PowerPoint and I put my logo on it. And that's it. That's all what I need. And then I take that slide and I add it, because you have a little plus sign. You can add an image or a video. So you can add it, and it's a matter of selecting it if you want to have your background projected. However, it's important then to bear in mind that with some backgrounds, it depends on how new or old your computer is. If you do not have the right setup, you might get the background to be reflected on your face and not in your background. So then it's not going to look good. So make sure that you test that before you start using it. And having a blue screen or a background, like a neutral one, that always helps with reflecting your background, the virtual background well.
Excellent. That is very comprehensive, Maha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then one more, I guess, follow-up question regarding backgrounds. We did have Tram who asks, regarding background, is a Zoom background okay?
Hi, Tram. How are you?
Exactly.
Yes, it's a Zoom background. It's fine. It really depends. I would prefer a neutral one. Okay, so I do not really project a background, but sometimes you find yourself in a place where you cannot have the whole setup. Let's say if you are participating in a meeting and you just need to show your face for a couple of minutes and you are not at home, or you're not at the office, then a background is good, because you might want to just project something neutral instead of showing the whole background of where you are. So it really depends, but it works. So just make sure that you test it, and make sure that you have like a WebAround or a screen or something, so that it reflects well.
Excellent. Thank you, Maha. That's very, very comprehensive. And it's nice to hear the best practices, right? So tips, everyone's using different backgrounds these days, so you don't know
Yeah.
You don't know what to do sometimes. I always love the ones people come on with the palm trees in the background. You're like,
Oh
oh, I wish
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
that
there.
video, I know, especially like many of us didn't really have a summer holiday this year. So yeah, it is good to to maintain this positive outlook.
It really is. Oh my goodness. Thank you for that. And now, Maha, we have a couple of questions about limiters.
Okay.
And so going back to when you were focusing on limiters, a couple of questions from Hank and Yoriko.
Hmm.
One question is, where does the mixer connect with the limiter?
Okay, let me see. Okay, so here is the mixer. So I would put the limiter between my headphones and the mixer. So usually you would connect the mixer straight, the headphones straight into the mixer, put the limiter in between.
Excellent. All right. And now on to the next question. Does the limiter change the quality of sound you hear?
Yes, it makes it lower.
Okay.
It makes it
Excellent.
lower. So it is good to know that. It is good to know that in some cases, the sound might be much lower than what you want. And even if you crank it up to the maximum, it would still be lower than what you need. And that is where the sound check comes in. So it is good to have that. And it's also important to accept that when we are in a remote interpreting setting, the sound quality that you are going to get is going to vary greatly from one participant to the other or from one speaker to the other, because it would depend on their connectivity, on whether they are using, I'm not going to talk about the quality of the headset, whether they are using a headset to start with or not, because we've all been there and we all know it's quite a struggle convincing speakers to use the headset. And of course, the speed of their computer. So these three elements, they can affect the sound quality, and they do greatly. So just know that the limiter can make the sound lower. So do test before a meeting to use it.
Excellent. Test, 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 right?
Yep.
And keep everything wired. These are
Yes.
takeaways that I'm getting.
Yes.
Quite
Yes.
honestly.
There you are. There you are.
That is wonderful. We had a question from Sabine, which I thought was quite interesting. In broad terms, Maha, what is the overall investment that people or that interpreters are looking at in the basic equipment that's necessary in order to perform remote interpreting successfully?
Okay. Well, if we are looking at getting a new laptop and a good headset and an adapter and a wire and everything, it depends on where in the world you live. But looking here at the UK where I live, I think I can get all this for about 700, 800 pounds, which is about $1,000. So then you would have a brand new laptop just for remote interpreting. And that is, again, something that I would advise. So keep something for work. Do not load it with so many things. And then a headset, let's say one for about $100 and one for a bit less. The cable, the adapter. So I think you can get the basic setup for $1,000. But then you can add more. And of course, you probably already had a laptop. You already probably had some things that are still usable that you can still combine with that setup. But yeah, you can. The range can vary depending on how expensive the equipment is that you want to get. Because you can get a decent laptop here in the UK for £400, but if you want to go for a MacBook, it is much more costly than this. So it really depends on what you want to do or what the budget you have is.
Okay. Excellent. I think that helps a lot, Maha, what you just said, right? To give people an idea of, and I like that on your slides, quite honestly, what are the basics that someone needs in order to do this, to start out and to do it successfully? I think that will help a lot of folks who have that question, who've been sending us something very similar. Excellent. All right. So we have another question, which actually is a little bit, not so much the tech aspect, but related to it. So here we have a question, Maha. Aside from the technical equipment required for remote interpreting, I wonder whether an interpreter can be held accountable if the connection is interrupted for some reason.
Aha, so we go to disclaimers. We now go back to
Just to finish off, right? Let's get to the legalese.
We go back to the previous presentation
Yeah.
about the client education. It is very important that in the quote that you send, in the contract that you have, have it in writing somewhere, that you are not liable, you are not responsible, and that is something that many international organizations now are putting in place whenever a meeting starts, in the same frame of telling the participants where to find the interpreting and that they need to mute themselves, etc. Like the protocol before we start the meeting. They also put in the chat and they read it out that if the image is pixelated or unclear, if the sound is of bad quality, if, then the interpreters will stop the interpreting and the interpreters are not liable. You have done your bit, you have invested in the equipment, you have invested in the skill, and you are ready. However, there are things that are beyond your control. If you have a power outage, if your internet supplier just, it drops for whichever reason, that is not something that you can control. So it's important to have such a disclaimer. You share it with the client when you are in the quoting process, when you are preparing a contract, so that it is very clear you are not liable. And there are templates for this, which you can use. So that's what I would advise. You're not liable. Make it clear from the very start.
Previous webinar. Yeah. Exactly. That is wonderful, Maha. Thank you so much. So we are at time. We do, again, thank you everyone for submitting your questions. We got to as many as we could. Hopefully, that helps a lot to start everyone off. Maha, thank you for your time, your expertise, extremely generous and an extremely informative presentation. We really, really appreciate it, as always.
Thank you very much for inviting me back. It's always good to be back. And thank you everyone for joining me. I really appreciate your taking the time to come, to listen, to interact. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Maha. All right. Hope you have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. You too. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.